will be recorded and shared with you after. My name is Ashita, and I'm the chair of the CitySwitch National Steering Committee. Today's session is part two of our two-part webinar series for the CitySwitch Circularity in Offices campaign. Our campaign partner is Edge Impact, and Mike will be leading us through today's session. This webinar focuses on operational waste in commercial offices, and we have a pretty action-packed agenda with an amazing lineup of speakers. So we've got Ella Clark from Friendly, Martina from ORG, and Nina from Reground, which we're very excited about. Next slide, please. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands we're joining you from today, the Gadigal of the Eora Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. I also extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples joining us today. Next slide, please. So for anyone who may be new to CitySwitch, it's a free program that helps office-based businesses take action on their journey to net zero. It's open to all types of businesses, regardless of the size and where you are on your sustainability journey. It's open for all. And this webinar is a good example of the type of support CitySwitch offers. Throughout the year, we offer many similar range of free resources, events, and practical support for our members. So if you are interested in learning more about CitySwitch or signing up, please feel free to get in touch with me. And with that, I'll hand over to Mike from Edge, who will take us through today's webinar.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So as mentioned, we have quite a lineup and a lot of content to get through. So I'll be breezing through the slides. And today's session, we've got 3 learning outcomes. What does resource management mean in an office-based scenario? Why does it matter? Setting up your system, so talking about streams, bins, utilising cleaners and interpreting data. And then we'll hand over to the guest speakers to discuss behaviour change, organics recycling, and some practical actions that you can take away as well. So I'll breeze through this. We have a quick poll just to understand what the current setup is in your office. Do you have general waste and recycling? Have you got cardboard? Have you got organics? Or have you got a full suite? So we'll set up a poll which can be answered in the background. You can answer that on your screen. And I'll keep talking as you do that. So operational waste. I want to just touch on some of the key principles to understand. Circular resource management is all about understanding and interpreting materials and waste as materials, not rubbish. So we're talking about eliminating waste, keeping materials in use, and regenerating nature. I always like to throw either the waste hierarchy or the 10 R's of circularity up at the beginning of presentations when we're discussing waste and circular economy, as it's a really good way to interpret materials and understand where you can introduce levers that can disrupt sort of standard material flows and things ending up in landfill. So we have refusing, redesigning, reducing, reuse, repair, refurbishment, remanufacture, repurpose, recycling, and recovering. There is obviously environmental benefits associated with waste management and recycling as much as we can, reusing what we can, but there's also sort of hidden economic and social benefits as well. The environmental benefits are associated with getting materials out of landfill. This is particularly important as we're approaching landfill capacity across the country. Sydney is expected to run out of landfill as early as 2028. So there's a real urgent need to try and drive better waste management practices across every sector. And that's why you're seeing the New South Wales come through with sort of the first of their kind business and council food waste recycling mandates, where organisations, councils are required by law to have a food waste recycling service. And we're seeing this across offices as well in Sydney and across the country, where organic recycling is becoming more and more available. Socially, waste is often the most visible thing that individuals see when it comes to making an impact on the environment. Single use is incredibly prevalent in office-based environments with takeaway coffee cups, takeaway packaging. And it's something that you can easily influence on a daily basis. And then economically, you are charged for the collections, and general waste is increasingly becoming more and more expensive. In New South Wales, as an example, the cost of disposal has gone up over 200% since 2010 and will continually do so year on year. And then contamination, so poor practices in an office can lead to contamination charges, where a recycling stream can incur penalty costs or won't be collected by your waste contractor. So having better data involving your cleaners can curb those hidden costs. Common office waste streams, we see general waste is always prevalent. Often it's seen in sort of your under-desk bins. Commingled recycling refers to sort of the mixed recycling stream: bottles, canned containers, hard plastics, paper and cardboard, organics, e-waste and batteries. And then there's often a suite of specialty streams, seeing soft plastics, coffee pods, as some examples of those. So setting up a office waste stream, we like to frame that not all recycling is equal. A really pivotal paper that was released by the GPT group, I think in 2012, called Taking the Rubbish Out of Recycling Data, framed materials into different grades. So A grade refers to materials that can be recycled over and over again in return to a product of a similar value. These are really high value recyclables. B grade refers to materials that are downcycled, so the fibres are sort of stretched, and this includes cardboard, paper and plastics. And C grade is materials with a one-off reuse. And then finally, there's landfill or contaminated loads as well. And it's really important to frame this, particularly when it comes to procurement decisions that you're making internally for your offices, around what sort of materials we want to try and prioritise and what can and can't be recycled. Bins, placement and signage. I mean, this is incredibly important and often something that's not really viewed as important. Under-desk bins, as an example, are something that we recommend should never be existing in an office-based scenario. You should always have bins that are set up in these recycling stations, like you can see in this photo here, where you have access to all the different streams that are available in your office, so that staff in your offices have the opportunity to recycle instead of under-desk bins, which lead to, I guess, lazy decisions, where often there's food waste, cans, bottles, etc., all ending up in the one bin. So we really recommend colour coding, signage at eye level, so that when you are approaching the bin, you're aware of what goes in it and why, and what can't go in it. And there's different examples around what these stations could look like in different zones of an office. We always recommend avoidance and reuse as much as possible across all offices in the large CBDs. We're seeing these reuse systems, these ecosystems pop up, like Husky and Circle, that are offering reusable cup systems that integrate the cafes that are often downstairs or in the nearby vicinity, where you can ask for a reusable cup that is then disposed of on your office level, collected and cleaned, and it really curbs the use of single-use coffee cups. I remember working for a building in Sydney CBD where they were having their coffee cups recycled or partially recycled, and they were, I think, received a certificate congratulating them for recycling over 1 million coffee cups in a year, which is an absurd amount of coffee cups for a single building. And if you extrapolate that across the entire city or the entire country, you can imagine how many single-use coffee cups are going to landfill every single day, every single year. So it's one of the easiest actions you can implement by purchasing reusable cups and ensuring that they're visible and ready to use by all staff members, and constant reaffirmation around the use of it, whether that's through monthly newsletters or having it really prevalent when staff are going downstairs to get a coffee. And that could be the same for single-use packaging when it comes to food takeaway as well. Working with your landlord and building, this varies building to building and how, I suppose, invested the building manager or the organisation is when it comes to waste management. But Neighbours Waste has exploded over the last few years across the country and has become more to the forefront around managing waste and recycling. The BBP has some great operational waste guidelines that are free and ready and able to be adapted. There's examples for contract clauses, for cleaning contracts, green leasing, awesome signage that can be downloaded and printed out, benchmarking and insights around best practice waste data. So definitely encourage having a look at the BBP's operational waste resources and signage, because there could be some very useful information there that you could utilise in your own office. But I definitely encourage sort of an open line of communication with the building manager. They may be pushing that waste discussion to try and improve their neighbours' waste, or they may not be, and it may need to be you who are asking them these questions about the different recycling streams that are in the building, getting access to organics, leasing requirements, data sharing to understand how your floor is comparing to other offices and tenants. These are really good data points that you can use internally. Cleaning team. So cleaners are at the front line. They see everything from contamination to missed opportunity of organics or recycling that's ending up in the general waste. And it's really important to create a line of communication with them to understand what's happening on your floor, in your office, where there could be improvements. And there's some awesome BBP resources around cleaning clauses, tenant education, contamination feedbacks, clear roles for incidents. So if there are continual contamination concerns from a particular area of the office or floor, that it could be shared. There could be images that are shared that they then can be utilised and distributed to the whole office team so that they understand, where to improve, what to focus on, and what can and can't go in specific bins. Waste data is really important, and it's becoming more and more granular. So we're seeing information and software that's coming out, like the bin tracker example here that I have on the right, where you can get floor or tenant-based waste reports. And that could be almost at a daily basis now with the use of Power BI and other AI software to interpret waste data that the cleaners are collecting every single day. Oftentimes, this will be shared with the building management team so that they can understand sort of who's doing what, who can improve, who's sort of lagging when it comes to recycling, and ensuring that you're getting access to that data so you can see how you're performing. If there's room for improvement, if there's any contamination concerns, this can all be shared internally. And data is really the foundation of where you can understand improvements that could be made across your office or across your building. Love to pass now to Ella, who is very experienced when it comes to change-based management with offices and waste management, and very thankful for her to be joining today. So I'll pass to you, Ella. Just let me know when you'd like to change slides.
Thank you. Hi, guys. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you, Mike, for the opportunity. Yeah, I'm really excited to share our takes on how to make a difference. I am the founder and director at Friendly, a behaviour change agency. We deliver programs that inspire, support, and celebrate staff in adopting waste systems through their day-to-day behaviours. And we help you help your people to do the right thing. So today, I am going to share more about behaviour change and why it matters when it comes to waste. Let's get started. Next slide, please. So I am going to start with a couple questions. The first one being, next slide, sir. What did you do this morning? For me, my alarm went off. I snoozed it, of course. And then I got up and went to the gym. Most weekdays, it's the same thing. Day in and day out. Point being, we are creatures of habit. Our brains purposefully minimize the number of decisions we have to make each day. Next question. Now, heading into the winter solstice, can you remember if you had a New Year's resolution? If you did, how is that going? My guess, I don't know you guys, but my guess is probably not so well. The lesson here is that goals without small, repeatable habits are almost impossible to keep. Big claim. Next, please. And lastly, how long do you think it takes on average to change a fairly simple habit? Pick a number in your head. And then pat yourself on the back if you picked 9 weeks. 21 days to 3 months. That was a big range. Well done. But yes, surprisingly, it can take over 9 weeks of consistent effort to totally change a habit. The human brain is wired to make shifting behaviors tough. So from our experience, we need to be kind, supportive, positive, and most of all, consistent to help move the dial on waste behaviors. Next, please. So now we know what we're working with. But there's hope to be had, because a great example of how we collectively achieved change across society was when we all had to start using reusable bags at the supermarket. It took a while, but as you know, we're pretty much there most of the time, which is fantastic. It's been successful as a movement because the goal was a single action supported by clear, repetitive messaging over time. Now, getting into strategies for creating change, it's important to remember a few key points. First of all, setting up your people for success. For us at Friendly, this is about communications. Firstly, we want to inspire people to care about the goal so that they know how much they are making a difference. For example, you can share how if they scrape their plate into the organics, not their plate, their food, they're helping create healthy soil systems. And so it's important to bring them along the journey to deliver a win-win for both. Then we support them by communicating the exact behavior we need them to adopt. For that same example, the behavior is to physically scrape the plate. Then finally, we want to celebrate their achievements. Positive reinforcement goes a long way to embed desired behaviors. And with that setting up for success, don't forget that waste signage can be really confusing. It can be out of eye line, it can be too small or lacking of identifiable waste images. So all in all, we want to communicate to set your people up to achieve your goals. The next point is that change takes time. One of our favourite sayings at Friendly is that behaviour change is a journey, not an event. One set of new signs or one email to staff sadly won't shift performance straight away. It takes effort and consistency over time. But there's hope, because whenever we're out working on office floors, we're always so pleased to see how much people really want to do the right thing. They just need to be set up for success. And lastly, focus on one thing. Imagine if you're thrown 5 balls at once, you're going to drop them all. But if you're thrown one, you'll likely catch it. So pick your main goal and focus your communications on that. For example, that same example, scraping scraps into the organics bin, hone in on that. We live in a world where our brains are fed thousands of messages every day. So keep it simple and give it time to sink in. That's all from me. Final slide, please. Thank you, everyone. It has been a total pleasure to present to you today, even though short and sweet. And I know that there's lots of amazing lessons to come. What I've shared is just an overview. We understand that your goals and your challenges are unique. So we're always happy to chat and explore them with you as you need. Thank you.
Thanks, Ella. And super valuable points. I think from my experience in often managing and auditing waste and being in the docks and seeing what's actually happening on a daily basis with contamination and disposal, you could have all the waste streams you want, but unless you have that behavioural change piece, people are going to revert to what they've always done, especially when organics, as an example, or soft plastics isn't something that's being done at home. It really does require that additional follow through with communications, signage, what can and can't go in the bin, why is it going in that bin, why is it important that we're doing this. So I really appreciate you outlining that. From experience as well, and sort of leaning into the next speaker, Martina from ORG. Organics is one of the most heavy materials in a waste stream, and often as well one of the ones that can have the biggest environmental impact from avoiding it ending up in landfill. There's a large amount of organics that are generated across the office portfolio from waste from lunches and coffee grinds, etc. So it's great to have her in to discuss around how you can optimize organics and implement it effectively. So I'll pass to Martina.
Thank you, Mike, so much. Thanks for having me. So yes, I'm just going to go through how we introduce food waste in different office buildings. First of all, next slide, please. I work for Org and Express Waste, which is an Australian family-owned business, and we're committed to delivering service excellence in recycling and waste management across New South Wales. One of our main waste streams is organics, and yes, now I'm going to go through the system of what we've implemented lately to have a bit of success in recovering food waste from office buildings. So next slide, please. Of course, the first step, I guess, is to set up the food waste bins in the loading dock, have a sign there, make sure that it's clear what can go in the bin, what can't go in the bin. But then once this is set up, as Mike was saying, like you can have them in there, but if the cleaners, the tenants are not communicated and don't have a system to use them, they're going to be there empty. And I've seen a few bins that have been there empty for a while until a new system has been implemented, or they were rarely used, you know. So next slide, please. What we've done with cleaners is we've trained them. We started in 2024 to train cleaners from the office buildings that we service, and we went through what goes in the food waste bin and why we do it. A lot of the cleaners don't know. A lot of the cleaners live in councils where food waste is not recycled or it's not recovered, so they don't know what goes in the food waste bin either. It's a really good and easy exercise that we do with videos and quizzes. We try to have it in multilingual resources because there's plenty of people from different backgrounds, and some are students who have just arrived to the country, so their English is not their main language, and we try to make it accessible for all. And I think that's important to see who's there, who's working in your offices, and try to make sure that they understand. So yes, we go through why and also what goes in the bins, and that starts making a big difference because they are the ones who are, as Mike said, at the front line. And then the other thing is we need to make sure that all the tenants have food waste bins set up, like caddies or in their stations, because we've been through lots of our buildings where there were no food waste bins set up in the kitchen. So it's very hard for a tenant, like for a single person who works in any business, to then go all the way down to the bin room to dispose of their apple core or something like that. So we need to make sure that that is happening. And sometimes it's important that the building managers provide these bins, because otherwise the tenants maybe are not super keen. Next slide, please. So these are some of the stations. I hope you can play this video, Mike. I'm not sure because it's a PDF, so I'm not sure. No, I just had
Let me
thought.
try.
It might not work. It's not super important. It was just lots of food waste caddies in different office kitchens.
I'll
And that's
see
an
if I can do it.
No worries. That's an exercise that we did in one of the buildings. It was 6 months after we implemented the food waste bin at the loading dock, and it was incredible to see that almost, like I would say, 20% had food waste stations, but the rest didn't. So I think that's something that the building managers can take us on as a responsibility to make sure that everyone has, and if they can, you can provide the bins, even better. And I know that bin trim, there's a bit of funding for that through bin trim, so you can also get the bins through that. No worries, Mike, it's okay. Let's go to the next one. And then the final action that we've been taking is training the tenants. So we go through similar training, why we separate food waste, the impact of food waste in the environment. I always say that food waste in Australia is equivalent to 3 million cars on the road, which is incredible. Like it's hard for us to stop moving around, but to put our food waste in the correct bin is so easy. So we hope that it's something that we can all do for the environment that is easy and something that is available for all of us. And we also provide this as an online training because not everyone comes. And I just want to show you to finish the results of one of the office buildings where we worked. So this is in Parramatta. We had the food waste for a long time, but no engagement had been done. And in June 2024, we started with our engagement. And it's incredible how it went from almost, say, 150 kilograms per month to more than 300. And then it stayed quite steadily. We did a bit more engagement this year. And we're yet to see, what's happening the rest of the year. But it's incredible to triplicate the amount of food waste that we are collecting. And it was mostly because a lot of the tenancies didn't have food waste bins and they didn't know that they could put their food waste in those tenancies. So yes, I think next slide, please. It is very important to first, of course, get the bin service for food waste, then introduce it to the cleaners. Remember, they're at the forefront. Then clear bin stations for everyone, make sure that there's signage, that there's bins provided, and then engagement sessions. So hopefully that everyone remembers that they have to do it. And then, of course, reinforce, because we are creatures that need repetition. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Martina.
In case someone wants more information. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Martina. Great to have your insights shared, and that's an amazing stat to see the food waste more than double just through engagement. I think it really illustrates the point that we've been making, that Ella made around behavioural change and engaging with everyone who are actually dealing with the waste streams on a daily basis. And I think when you are introducing organics, especially, if you're not currently doing that at home, it can be really foreign and almost forgotten. If you have a really busy day, you just fall back to what you're used to doing. And if that's putting everything in the one bin, then that's what you're going to do. So waste is often an afterthought, and it really does require sort of constant reaffirmation. The end goal is that, especially as it starts to come available across your councils and businesses, that food waste is as simple and as easy as putting cardboard in the blue bin. So that's the end goal. Thank you, Martina. And lastly, we have Nina from Reground. So Nina, thank you for joining, and I'll pass over to you.
Thank you so much, Mike, and thank you for inviting me to speak today. And also great to hear from Ella and Martina. Awesome work you guys are doing. It really does take a lot of us to change the system. I will be talking about how to make circularity initiatives stick. And if you want to just skip to the next slide, Mike. Why can I speak about this? So Reground is a social enterprise, that are dedicated to building a circular future. And we very much specialize in operationalizing circularity. We've been around for 12 years, and you might know us from collecting coffee grounds. That is how we started 12 years ago, which is a great example of using resources at its highest value for longer. But since 12 years ago, we have also dug through a lot of bins, seen a lot more problems, and in 2017, we started working with both commercial and residential buildings of various sorts to investigate how do we change. At that time, it was how do we reduce waste, increase recycling, and obviously now the broader conversation is much more around circularity, which goes further upstream, talking about avoiding, reusing, and everything that you covered in your slides. Mike, if you want to go to the next one. To talk about how we make circularity stick, we need to talk a little bit about why they fail. And I have seen this happen over and over again. It's very common, and in fact, it's very important to focus on why they fail, because the impact of seeing initiatives being rolled out and then not being followed through or not working creates a culture of it's not possible. And the exercise that we are all doing at the moment, whether we are operating out of offices or not, at home, we're really kind of collectively going through a phase of transitioning and of really needing to believe that this is possible, that this shift from a linear to a circular economy is possible. So the reasons why we see in these initiatives fail comes down to three things. And we have done audits, waste audits across all sorts of sites, commercial buildings, residential buildings, and the data just comes back to the same thing: consistency, coordination, and culture. And so I think I'm going to be talking a little bit to what Ella and Martina, both of you guys, were talking about, because it is really a shift. But ultimately, yeah, we're talking about a culture shift and how we implement that shift over and over again. All right, next one. I like, as I said, to come at it from a lens of operations, because what I love about circular economy is that it's a question regarding resources. This is a thing that is happening in the real world around us. We can touch it, we can feel it. It's not just a theory. And that's why the circularity conversation is such a practical conversation, and we can bring so many people along on this journey with us. We have studied these buildings over many years, and really understanding who makes up the ecosystem is critical. And I think this is, Martina, you were talking about cleaners. Ella, you're talking about tenants. And in all these buildings, there'll be other types of stakeholders. The facility manager is repeatedly coming up as like that central coordination point that is so critical for input and for that coordination, and ultimately for that culture shift. They will be the people that talk to the waste contractors, to cleaners if there's any problems. They will also be acting on behalf of the landlords, delivering on targets. And of course, we'll have buildings with one tenant, but we might also have buildings with multiple tenants, and they'll be hearing from all of those tenants. So what I'm trying to say is that this one staff member in a potentially very large village of people, different people with different needs, they are critical to seeing the circularity agenda flow. So you might have within a tenancy certain circularity initiatives that you want to implement, but ultimately you might not know unless you're conducting waste audits on a tenant level, which maybe, well, it is definitely happening, but what we don't want to see is that that waste gets taken down to the centralized bin room and then we are sort of losing sight. So that facility manager is really having that oversight of what happens in reality. And many people also from a behavioral lens is really like kind of they want to see the reality. They want to know what's happening, and they get motivated when we give them feedback on what's happening down in the bin room. So we have to make sure that all their good work in their offices aren't dying in that bin room. And that facility manager is the one that is pushing up that communication. So next slide. The problem obviously here is that that's not really the role of a facility manager. Like a facility manager and the people we speak to often actually struggle to even understand how to come at the conversation around circularity, even sometimes just resource recovery and understanding why that's important. And that happens because, you know, it's not built into their position description, or the mandate hasn't been given to them so they can provide real feedback to tenants and communicate with cleaners, say, on changing practices. So what we see is that the engagement of facility managers who might have great intentions and also really want to do this, they are either well supported, or if they're not well supported, it really stops there. So practically and operationally, we have to talk about how we support facility managers, because they are this coordination point. And that is not to say that tenants and other stakeholders, it could also be the cleaning contracts, that they might not feed into setting targets, but we have to have one point of contact that keeps this conversation alive. And so I think what we have experienced is that this level of tying up the ecosystem across these sites is a real struggle in reality. The opportunity is, however, that, you know, when we have a strongly coordinated effort that is spearheaded by a facility manager that is well supported, is that we can implement initiatives and support behaviors over time. And that creates an environment of appetite for more. So if we celebrate, and this is what Ella was talking about, when we celebrate behaviors, people that we are reinforcing those behaviors, and that then just increases the want and the support of more behaviors. So implementing more circularity initiatives also become easier. All right, next one. Another one that I think is really important when we talk about circular economy is that the circular economy is a systems change. It's a whole system that's essentially moving away from linear extractive ways of operating. And we need to focus less on what we're doing, but more thinking about how we do things, which means that, and if you're speaking to the Ellen MacArthur's and the CITRA's, the big circular economy organizations, they and we should be recognizing that the shift also includes, goes beyond just what we're doing and more on how. So say the intentions behind certain initiatives and how we roll them out. So social awareness become really critical, because we're not just redesigning how we extract materials, we're also redesigning how we are in support of not extracting from social resources as well. So business models, and I just want to encourage everyone that's considering circularity initiatives to really understand that you're buying how things are done as well. And this will come into scope 3 emissions, like for example, our contractors using EV fleets. Where are things going? Are we keeping resources as local as possible, and so on? So these big shifts are all intertwined and related. So actually inviting in complexity is part of this transition to a circular economy. Next slide, Mike. Now, finally, I just want to say that, I'm not here to say that circular initiatives are really simple to make stick, because it's not the case. And being honest and upfront is actually really important about how it requires real intention and also a commitment to showing up again and again. But it follows a similar roadmap to what you were saying, Ella, about setting a strong intention, starting with strategy. What do we all have in common? If we have multi-tenants, what do we all have in common? What can we agree on? Because we want to address the low-hanging fruit first, start there, get those wins to then scale. That strategy is also what we hold ourselves accountable against. So that becomes the roadmap. It's very, very easy to get lost in kind of all the different initiatives we could do, right? So we want to start with what is a low-hanging fruit, but also build and track our progress. Designing things, it really comes back to designing things that are simple and easy to understand for our people. We are dealing with so many different humans that are coming in, as Mike has said multiple times, like from different council areas where there's different communication provided to them. So in our workplaces, how do we standardize the way we talk about the initiatives that we are rolling out? Simplifying is always a great idea. And obviously, yeah, procurement, I think, honestly, everything comes down to who you work with, because in this transition to a circular economy, your contractors should really be very actively pushing for a circular agenda and demonstrating every single day how they're delivering on that. And right now, we are in a very funny time where there is actually a lot of diversity out there. So I recommend really utilizing, the born circular businesses to help you deliver, because they are hungry and ready to scale the circular sector. I will say Ellen MacArthur Foundation talks about how certain large organizations will not make it into the circular future. They will be, as they say, composted throughout. So be very aware of how we work with certain contractors that are ready to deliver against the circular agenda. And of course, delivery. This is where it all falls down if we don't pay attention. So we have to support our key players, our facility managers, train them, help them train cleaners. And by the way, it could look like working with Martina. Like really, the support of facility managers could be simply adding in contractors that care to have that conversation. And then finally, optimizing, because this is an ongoing forever journey. So there is no end. And in fact, that is when it becomes culture, is when we are hungry for doing more, for proving that we can implement many different streams because we're benefiting local communities with our resources. That is the foundation of a circular economy. And have fun. That's also something you said, Martina. And I think that is honestly the key, is not to lose sight of how fun this can be, because it's not just something to tick off. It's actually a community we're creating. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much, Nina. Appreciate those insights. Yeah, you definitely touched on a lot of things that I think was shared across all of us, all three of us presenters. So really appreciate that. I do agree with a lot of what you said around bringing people along for the journey. I think your point around contamination as well, from my experience, being in the waste audits, being in the waste docks, you know, seeing recycling bins that have anywhere from 50 to 80, I've seen as high as 90% contamination rates in some mixed recycling bins, sort of illustrates the confusion that there can sometimes be around waste disposal, and trying to simplify that, as you said, is really important. So making it really clear for everyone working in the office of what goes where and why, and constantly communicating on how you can improve is super important. So thank you. Just to wrap up, just wanted to outline a few really practical actions that you can take away and implement within your own office, whether you're starting from scratch, if you're currently sort of underperforming, or you're ready to even go further. So something we always recommend that's so simple to do on a daily basis is just lifting the lid and looking inside your bins. So if that's your general waste bins, understanding what's currently in there. Is there a lot of food waste? Are there still, you know, bottles and cans and paper that are ending up in there? That's sort of really easy, low-hanging fruit of what you can take photos of, communicate clearly across the office space. If it's contamination, if there's plastics ending up in the organic stream, if there's single-use coffee cups ending up in the recycling bins, take photos, share that information, update your signage so that it's clear around those particular items that you're commonly seeing in your bins, and ask your building manager support and share your findings with them. If you're finding a lot of contamination, look to target that particularly with, you know, the top 3 items you're consistently seeing. Add organics if you haven't yet. Talk to your building manager that if you haven't received organics, notify them about the EPA mandates. Discuss how that could be implemented, or that you're interested in having that implemented, and setting up cleaner feedback loops. If you're ready to go further, reuse systems, as I mentioned, is a great way a great place to focus. There are plenty of systems, like I mentioned, around Husky, Circle, Cups as examples, setting recovery targets, having clear clauses in contracts, tracking your waste data is also really important, so that you can compare against other individuals, other tenants in the offices, so you can track how you're performing, and if you need to focus on improving. Discussing this with your leadership team, you do obviously need to get buy-in for some of these initiatives to take place. There's the opportunity, you know, there is a whole building approach to improving waste diversion. There is changes around the way that buildings are managing and interpreting how tenants are performing, and reflecting that in charges, so your costs on a monthly basis. You know, it is an overarching cost for the building. When a building is performing poorly on waste, it does come at a premium. Engaging staff, making sure you have buy-in from the team around how you engage with staff. It is, as we've mentioned, the most visible action that you can make on sustainability. There are often times, you know, undercover green thumbs amidst your offices who compost at home, or have been waiting for these initiatives to come into practice in the office space, that you can use as champions to see what's working, what could be improved. Engage your team is a great way to drive this. And then Credible Waste Data supports ESG reporting. So with the ASRS and requirements for sustainability reporting, having clear and credible waste data is really important in strengthening those reports. Some questions for your building managers. understanding what current streams you have in place, and do you have access to all of those in your particular floor? How's the dock set up? How is contamination being tracked, and is that fed back to you, to your cleaning team? Asking for feedback on how you're performing against other tenants, asking for particular colour-coded bags. Do the cleaning staff offer any training that staff can receive? And then for your waste contractor or the building's waste contractor, understanding what materials are accepted. So what's the acceptability criteria for each recycling stream? And can they report on weights to you as well on a monthly basis? I'll pause there. Actually, before I do, I'll just share the final slide on the key resources that are available. We will be sharing the slide deck as well as links to these resources. So the operational waste guidelines, City Switch have great guidance and also awesome signage that you can print out and use. Neighbours Waste will share some information on that and what they are doing there, and further City Switch resources. So I'll pause there, stop sharing. The results of the poll as well. So 21% of attendees today only had general waste and co-mingled in the office. Some 24% had paper and cardboard as well. And 55% had organics, e-waste, soft plastics, cups and more. So that's awesome. It would be really interesting if you don't know and if your building is doing regular waste audits as part of Neighbours to understand the contamination rates of all those different streams to see how you're performing. But I'll just pause and see if there are any particular questions that I'll run through. So to begin, is there any platform that can calculate our waste generation per head count or per floor area if we don't have actual waste data? There isn't necessarily a platform that I'm aware of, but for our guest speakers, feel free to jump in. Usually the way that you would calculate that is through a waste audit or even a visual waste assessment that is similar to the bin trim style of doing an assessment, where you simply note down the amount of bins that you have in your office area, the volumes of those bins. So if they're 80 litre bins, you note down that, and then you would want to, if you don't want to do a full waste audit, City Switch has a visual waste assessment tool as well that follows a similar methodology. You can note down the contents within those bins, so you can outline, from a visual point of view, how much organics is in the general waste bin, how much recycling exists in that bin, and that'll give you sort of a quite a good understanding of where the opportunities are and how much waste you're generating as well. So thanks for sharing that link. Great takeaways. Thank you, Jack. And if there are any other questions, please throw them in the chat. Otherwise, we are close to time.
Very efficient.
Yeah, ahead of time. I was worried we had a lot to get through, but I appreciate everyone joining, and real special thanks to all the guest speakers to sharing their insights as well. So really appreciate it. As Ashita mentioned, this recording will be available on the City Switch YouTube page. We'll also be doing a follow-up email with the slide deck and all the links that we discussed in the call today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to any of us on the call if you need any support. And of course, City Switch as the key information space for all your office waste and circularity needs. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone. See you later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.